Beans to brews. What is beans to brews? Well, it's all about coffee. From the farm where it's grown to the roaster, and then from the roaster to the coffee shops and into your homes or into your car or wherever you're enjoying some really great coffee. So Beans to Brews, a small group of friends talking all about coffee. If you like coffee, you found a great place to find out more about it. We're all learning together. So stay with us from Apostolic Coffee Shop in Radcliffe, Kentucky. We are just going to make several podcast episodes of Beans to Brews. All right, welcome to Beans to Brews. This is our small group where we're going to explore the fascinating journey of coffee. And we're going to be talking about this session. We're going to start with from seed to cup, and we're going to start talking about how the coffee seed, basically gets to the cup that you have in your hand. And it's a really cool, interesting process. There's a lot that goes into it that a lot of people probably don't think about on a regular basis. But today we're going to start at the very beginning. This is all about coffee. So if you don't like coffee, maybe this will just give you a better appreciation for it. But let's talk about it. We're going to talk about the coffee plant that produces these ripe cherries or berries, whatever you want to call them. Did you know that the coffee story spreads over like 1,000 years? It's, goes way back, right? And it originally started in Ethiopia. And this coffee journey is going to touch every area of the globe before it's done. All right, so let's talk about Kaldi. Has anybody ever heard of Kaldi? You guys know Kaldi?
No.
Okay.
No clue.
So Kaldi is the Ethiopian goat herder. He noticed, and I love this story. It's just so great. But he noticed that his goats were becoming just energetic, and he's like, what are they doing? Like, how are they so hyper? And then he noticed that they were eating these red berries or red, kind of cherries from a plant. And he was like, oh, that's a coffee plant, So it's like, okay. Well, before then, it really didn't make any sense, but they were getting all this caffeine. And so he figured out, well, maybe that plant has some value that we could use as humans. And so, in Ethiopia, he started harvesting these and sharing them with people. And from Ethiopia, then coffee traveled all the way to Yemen, where it was first cultivated. And it spread all through the Arab world. By the 17th century, coffee houses were all over Europe, and they were kind of the center of conversations. Like people would come, they wanted to come and talk. And most people will tell you that the first cup of coffee that was ever served was served in Yemen. So, yeah. So it's pretty neat. But coffee didn't stop there. It has this global journey, and it is really it's got a unique appeal. The way that it brings people together, and so that's where the story begins. Is it was in Ethiopia, but really it starts with the seed in the soil, and every step of the process is important. You can't just go out in your backyard and grow coffee unless you live in one of the regions that allows for coffee to be grown. This is a great topic because a lot of people just think, well, I'll just go to the store and get my coffee, and it's not a big deal. But where you get your coffee, where the coffee came from, how it was picked, how it gets harvested, how it's processed, and then how it is transferred, and then how it's roasted, and all that stuff matters when you're talking about what's my coffee going to taste like. So this is a cool subject, and we want to tonight. We're going to start just try to get a deeper appreciation for the farmers, the roasters, and then us. Some of us as baristas who try to bring it to life. So with that said, what is a coffee plant? What does a coffee plant look like?
Just kind of looks like a little shrub.
Yeah, it's like a little evergreen shrub kind of deal. It's not a particularly impressive plant, but yeah, just a little evergreen. We actually have a live coffee plant growing right now in the shop, and we're trying to keep it alive and make it get through the winter. So we'll see. Hopefully, we'll be able to share some pictures of that with you.
Yeah. It takes really ideal conditions for it to grow, so hopefully
you
keep it healthy.
Yep. Do you guys know that there's like so there's typically a lot of people say there's a lot of different kinds of coffee. There's really, when you boil it down, there's really only two kinds of coffee plants. Do you guys know what those are?
Arabica.
Yep.
And is it Robusta?
Robusta, yeah.
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 So Arabica is known for like mild, complex flavors. It's what most countries grow Arabica. In fact, in some countries, it's actually even illegal to grow Robusta. But Robusta is like a stronger, more bitter flavor. A lot of times it's used in instant coffee. Like it just really gives you that coffee punch. But yeah.
Yeah, when you get a lower quality cup from Robusta because
It's easier to grow. It's more mass produced.
Yeah, Arabica has a higher quality, but it's more susceptible to like diseases, and pests and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But Robusta is more disease resistant, can grow in warmer, lower altitude, but it's typically a lower quality of coffee.
Yeah, and I like that you've done your homework. That's
Thanks.
great.
It's fun to do homework when you
Right, when you like,
coffee,
when you like learning about it. Yeah, that's awesome. All right, so there is a certain area of the world that coffee grows best in. Do you guys know what that's called?
The bean belt.
The bean belt, or the coffee belt. And for those that don't know, it's basically between the tropics of Cancer and Capricorn. I'm sure that helped most of you.
Some
You
people.
know exactly what that, but no, just kidding. But so you want to have ideal conditions for growing coffee. And that's, like, I looked up some. I've traveled and been to a lot of different countries where they're growing coffee. And it's neat when you get to see it and like, I had to drive up the mountain to get there, and I know the elevation's higher, and they're like, okay, and we're growing at 14 to 1600. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. But ideally, you want a high altitude, anywhere from 800 to 2200 meters above sea level for Arabica. You want to have a moderate rainfall, which is like 1,500 to 2,000 millimeters annually of rainfall in that area. And then you want your temperatures to stay in between 60 and 70 degrees. And that's why you can't, like here in Kentucky, you can't just go out in your backyard and grow coffee because your temperatures don't stay in between 60 and 70 degrees.
Because your higher temperatures lead to like faster ripening and all of that. And something I didn't know is coffee plants need a lot of shade.
Yes.
They're like a shade. They're in their natural habitat. They're covered by other trees.
Yep.
So the more shade you have, the better.
And a lot of farmers now will grow them next to other plants that have big leaves and allow for more shade, like banana trees and stuff like that.
Yeah, and when we were in Guatemala, they actually showed us the process of how they would grow the coffee plants, and then they would plant the trees, and they would space it out just right so that those trees would grow for shade, but it would be just enough sunlight. And it was protected it, but it was still enough sunlight that would get through. So it's really, people think it's like, oh, just go out and get some coffee. It's there's a lot that goes into it, and some people don't know too that like once you put the seeds in the ground and you start trying to grow this coffee, or you start with little plants, it's going to take that plant, like it'll grow and grow and grow, but it'll take that plant anywhere from 3 to 5 years to start producing coffee.
Yeah.
So think about the investment. Like we got all this land, and now we got to cultivate this land, and now we got to set these trees up for the shade, and we got to put these coffee plants in, and you're not going to see anything. You're not going to make any money from that for 3 to 5 years. And oh, by the way, that whole time you got to make sure that the bugs aren't, getting it, the critters aren't taking it out.
You're not controlling the weather.
Yeah, and you're not controlling the weather, so you're just trying to make sure the conditions are as ideal as possible.
Right.
So a lot of investment goes into coffee plants and coffee farms.
Right.
All right. So let's talk about how coffee is harvested.
Yeah. So I actually learned a lot about this. So a lot of people don't know actually that coffee is actually a fruit.
Mm-hmm.
We have our little cherry here.
Some people call it a cherry. Some people call it just
a berry.
A berry.
Coffee berry.
Yeah. So some of the harvesting methods will affect your coffee quality too. One of the best methods to use is they pick the coffee as it ripens. So they look for those riper cherries, but takes longer, all of that.
Yeah.
But there's also where they just pull all the cherries off at once, but you're risking getting some ripe, some not, and then you're mixing that, and you're going to get a lower quality cup of coffee.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and there's some people, some places they'll have like strip picking is what they call it, and it's basically they'll take all the cherries and then they're all going,
and it's fast and convenient.
Yeah,
but
and even there's some countries, Brazil is one of the main countries, but they will take and they'll use agitators and they'll just like kind of shake the trees, and then the cherries fall and they go through and they just like pick them up, like they have a machine that picks them all up off the ground. So you're getting a lot of like ripe, unripe, and everything in between cherries or berries or whatever, and then the places and where we get our beans for our coffee shop, and one of the best ways to get beans is the selective picking process, which is you got literal workers out there. They've got baskets, containers, all that, and they're going through. They're only picking the ripe cherries
because they don't grow like some people. Like when a plant grows, things will grow uniformly.
Yeah.
Coffee cherries don't grow that way. So like some will ripen faster than others.
Yeah.
That's why it's important to pick and select the good ones.
Yeah, when we went, they actually let us pick them, and they said, these are the ones to pick. These are the ones that are going to be ripe, and these are the ones that are not. And they showed us the difference, and it was kind of cool because like they were like, yeah, this one's not ripe yet, but go ahead and pick it and like taste it and smell it and all that. It was
so they're like eating them and tasting them.
Yeah.
Are they getting like a caffeine?
Yeah, you
kick
can get
from,
caffeine from it. Like
the
you get a little kick from it, but it's just, it's literally in just like a cherry, like a wet form, when you pick it. So it's pretty cool.
That's cool.
But yeah, so the time intensive process of selective picking gives you the best beans. That's the difference between a lot of people, like your typical main brands, and I'm not going to name any, but your typical main brands that you can go to the store and just find easily. They're probably from one of those agitators or just a strip picking process where
mass production.
Yeah, you got tons of beans. Some of them are good beans, some of them are not good beans, and you don't know. Like it's just all kind of lumped together, and it's coffee, but it's not great coffee. So the cool thing is when you have you're only getting the best beans, and there's a process to make sure you're only getting the best beans, and that's kind of like the start of great coffee is like picking the beans when they're supposed to be picked. So. But let's talk about some of the challenges of harvesting.
Okay, so we've already covered like quite a few of them as y'all were speaking. They come with several challenges, both physical and logistical. They can vary depending on whether coffee is harvested by hand or mechanically, which is what we just talked about. For the sake of this conversation, we'll focus on beans that are harvested by hand because that's mostly what we're going to be dealing with. Physical challenges, they're steep and uneven terrain. So a lot of these grow, like you said, on mountainous areas.
Yeah.
So that makes it difficult to move and to transport harvested cherries.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the packs that they carry are 50 to 100 pounds. So imagine trying to bring that down a mountain.
Yeah.
The strain that's going to put on your body. Correct. Right. You're probably going to lose.
And most of these, and I'm not trying to insert, but most of these pickers are like, not American size. Like they're smaller people. So, you think 100 pounds, 130, 40 pounds, most of them, and it's like
they're carrying their own weight.
Yeah, they're carrying about half their weight in coffee.
So it's an athletic sport.
Yes. Yeah.
Exposure to harsh weather, we touched on that as well. Harvesting often happens in hot and humid or rainy conditions, leading to dehydration, heat exhaustion, illness, as well as pests and wildlife, as you touched on, and the threat of disease. So coffee farms can be home to insects, snakes, other animals that pose risks to workers, but there's also a risk of disease to the tree itself or the plant. Such as coffee leaf rust, which can reduce yields and complicate harvesting.
Yeah.
I saw pictures of it.
What is the leaf rust?
It turns the cherry yellow, like literally a rust color, and then it disintegrates. It's foul.
Yeah, it's like the plant gets a disease kind of thing.
Yeah. And then logistical, so selective picking versus strip harvesting. So high quality coffee requires selective picking, right?
Yeah.
So meaning only the ripe cherries are getting picked, and that requires time and skill. Well, they don't have the means to put the time and effort into training people to do this. So that's a challenge to a lot of these countries.
Well, for how long it takes a coffee plant to grow, it's like you're trying to deal with all these things. You're trying to like get as much out as you can.
Like when you think about it, like when you personally buy a bag of beans, probably like a really good one, maybe $15-$20. Varies wildly depending on what quality bean you get.
Yeah.
When you go all the way back to the beginning, that farmer who like collected and farmed that bean, they maybe get like 10-15% of that money. So all of that work is just for 10% of what
they have to they have to pick a lot of cherries, a lot of coffee beans to get anything from it, which and it's so, and we're going to talk about it in another session, but that's why fair trade with coffee is so important, because it means that everybody's being paid fairly. Like that's decided from that country, so that country decides what coffee pickers will make, and fair trade means that those farms that do that, those workers are actually getting paid the fair amount. They're not. You can go some places where they're not, where they're being and.
And so when you're buying coffee and you see that stamp or whatever, fair trade, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I didn't want to go in too much detail because I knew we were going to touch on that, but market price fluctuations, like farmers, they have to balance harvesting costs with fluctuating coffee prices in global markets. So that can impact their income and investment in harvesting operations. So it's kind of a slippery slope.
Yeah.
But we'll touch on that
one of
another.
One of the things that I remember from the last coffee farm that I visited was I asked them about like their pickers, and they were telling me, the two main things that they fear where they were at, and we were at Costa Rica at the time. They said the two main things that they fear are snake bite and broken limbs, and like because they're so heavy, they like fall and they'll break a limb, and then they can't pick the rest, and that's how they make their money. Yeah. So like a lot of them at the farm we were at, they actually provide insurance for their pickers, so that if something like that happens, they'll have insurance to cover them for the rest, to make whatever they were going to make for that season and help them to recover.
And pickers are probably so few and far between. It's not like someone gets hurt and they can say, "Hey, Rachel, can you come in today?"
Yeah,
that's just
it's
not
like a multi-generational thing.
Yeah.
Yes, and you only pick for so many months out of the year. It's like a short season. So you can't literally just like, that can't be your main income. You have to have another income. In Costa Rica, again, this was the last one that I visited, they said that they can't even get Costa Ricans to pick because Costa Ricans can make more money, and they would make more money doing whatever. So they'll have people from Nicaragua will come in just for the 3 or 4 months out of that year to pick. They'll make more money than they would make in a year in Nicaragua, and so they'll take the money back to Nicaragua to their families. So, but it's also higher risk and higher reward for that. So.
Yeah.
But, all right. So let's talk about quality. Brian, did you have that?
Yeah. So obviously all this stuff that we were just talking about matters when you get to the final product. Like if those workers are paid more, if they're allowed more time to get their process done, get their techniques figured out. Some of the higher quality farmers will like give their workers insurance, but they'll also give them like education in the off season to allow them to grow the coffee better.
Yeah.
A lot of these like micro roasters, they have direct relationships with the farmers instead of the direct trade or fair trade stuff. There's usually a middleman in any sort of coffee process, but the less people involved, it means like people keep more money. They're allowed to invest more into the coffee.
Yeah, and you can imagine like, so I was talking about the Costa Rica and them bringing in people from Nicaragua. They come in and pick the coffee. Like Costa Rica is like totally open to that. Like come pick the coffee, and then like some of the coffee farms, they actually will provide childcare for the kids. They'll provide meals for the workers. Like every day they provide health care, like that kind of stuff. Just because it's so hard to get people to come and to do that selective picking. But that all those things, like what are you willing to give, and then you provide that because you're going to make how much money, and it's like so it's kind of a trade off to make sure that you're getting the best beans, you're getting the best quality. So, but yeah,
and some of those plants, they take like 5 to 10 years just to produce 1 cup of coffee. One of the rarest forms, one of the rarest plants, it's called Eugenoides, I believe, coffee. Like throughout its whole life, it'll produce enough to make like maybe 2 cups of coffee.
Yeah.
It's like one of the rarest in the world. It's like $200 just to get a bag of it.
Sounds like talking about like bourbon or like all this aged. Other
There's
stuff.
so many different varieties of coffee and like crossbreeding and all that stuff. And the only way that's allowed to happen is if those workers get paid more and they have the time to put effort into their craft instead of just making as much Robusta as possible.
Right. Yeah, and it's really cool because like when you think about how much goes into just 1 cup, it's like that's a lot of work for 1 cup of coffee. And some people, especially in the U.S., it's like people have gotten used to. You can go to this coffee shop or that coffee shop, or you can go get coffee at the store, and we don't really think about like what all goes into a cup of coffee. And if you just look at the bean itself, you basically as you open it up, you're looking at the outer skin. What you see when it's picked off the tree is this outer skin, and the outer skin is what they call it, like the pulp. So this is like the pulp of the cherry, and then there's like this sticky, they call it the mucilage, and it's kind of like the sticky outer layer, and then it gets the next layer down is like the parchment, and you got to get the parchment off of there as well, and then you finally get down, and there's just a real thin film layer, and you almost like you can scrape it if you have a nail, like you can scrape it and get it off.
And there's like special processes to get
to
rid
do
of each of those layers.
Each of those layers. And then you end up, your last thing is your seed or your coffee bean.
We haven't even planted it yet.
Even when it's there, it's not done yet. It's still got to get roasted. It's still got to get sent to somebody. A barista has to make it into a piece of espresso, a latte.
So it's just getting, and I thought it was cool because like you get to see some of these, you pull them out, and every once in a while you would find a cherry and it would have like 3 in it, and I was like, that's kind of a weird, but it happened, and it's just neat because all of the processes, if the process wasn't there, if we didn't have like, there's different processes, and we'll talk about that in another session, but all the processes that go into getting us down to that green coffee bean, it's just amazing. And how many green coffee beans you have to have, in order to make any money, and then in order to make, really good coffee. So, all right. So let's talk about, let's wrap up. Let's just discuss something for a minute. What surprised you most? What was your like, because we're doing some research to try to make this podcast happen and like make this interesting for everybody. What was the one thing that stood out to you and what you were looking up and what you studied that maybe you didn't know, or it just was like, oh wow?
For me, it was like how long the process is to get just a good cup of coffee. Because like you kind of touched on like, in America, I think coffee has turned into this fast pace. Like I just need it. I'm trying to get to work. It's a rushed thing, and getting that is not a rushed process.
Right.
So I learned like to maybe stop and enjoy it a little bit more now that I've learned how much goes into how many people have risked their life, almost their livelihood, their job, their money so I can have this cup of coffee. So it's just like, slow down, like enjoy it. Yeah. Because someone worked really hard.
Yeah, it's like, I'm waiting too long for my coffee. Well, that's a first world problem.
Right. Like someone waited. Someone fell down the hill and got bit by a snake.
Somebody literally waited years to get you that cup of coffee. Not chill.
So let us take our time to make it good for you.
Let's make it right.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah, like we're in Kentucky, so maybe this isn't correct, but a lot of people when they think of farming, they see like the red barn, like a bunch of rows of perfectly placed corn plants.
Yeah.
But like this is all like in the equator, like rainforests and stuff like that. Like there's tigers and snakes and stuff
Yeah.
to kill
Yeah.
you
It's
for
crazy.
like in the middle of you farming coffee.
It's crazy. Yeah.
Like the physicality of it.
Yeah.
Really surprised me.
It's like there's a lot more in it than we even like just your average person would think about. It's like, oh, it's just it's just go out and get some coffee beans. No, it's like a whole literal process.
Right.
And then if you hit excessive weather,
Yeah.
Right.
It's
Which what are you
gone.
going to do? You
Yeah.
can't turn that off. and
you
on.
waited
Like,
for 3 to
Yeah.
5 years
Yeah.
for it to grow, and you
Yeah.
get
And it
a
gets
ra-
wiped out.
It's
yeah.
gone. You get a flood and it's
Yeah,
gone.
some of the practices of like a lot of the bigger roasters, like the land that they use to make those coffee plants, like it ruins the soil and ruins everything. So you can't even make coffee on that
Yeah.
piece of
Oh,
land anymore.
wow.
So that's why a lot of people are trying to focus on regenerative
Yep.
farming,
okay.
like diversifying and like planting them next to banana
Yep.
leaves and making sure that the earth
Can
stays
handle,
healthy
yeah,
Can handle
and
it, yeah.
can make more
sustain it,
coffee.
yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I know like we're gonna get in on more, but some of the places they'll grow it in one place. They'll grow it like if they own a large coffee farm, whatever. They'll grow it in one place for so many years, and then they purposely move it so that it doesn't. And they basically it's letting the land rest. But yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, I didn't know
The
that.
journey of coffee. I mean, how much goes into just the one cup that you know, or if you're like me, 3 cups, whatever that you had today. Like, I mean, I almost take it for granted because we're around it so much. But I think it's good to stop and just appreciate like how awesome it is that you're experiencing what you get to experience. So it's cool. Well, in our next session, we're going to try to talk about how coffee cherries become the roasted beans that we get, and we're gonna, that's what everybody loves is that roasted bean. And I think heaven is gonna smell like roasted coffee. Like I think it's gonna be like
Yeah.
freshly ground roasted coffee is what heaven smells like. I'm pretty sure.
Like people open the drive-through window and they're like, "Oh my gosh, it
yeah,
smells so good."
yeah,
What's
like
that?
that's what heaven's gonna smell like. I'm pretty sure. But so what we'd like to do is if we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves because we haven't even published the first episode, but this is going to be a first episode. So if you like it, hit the like and subscribe button so that you can kind of go to the next session. That would be cool. And then like this experiment won't have completely been in vain, right?
Right.
But reflect, if you want to leave us a comment wherever this gets posted, wherever you're watching this, if you want to leave us a comment about maybe just your favorite coffee moment when you started liking coffee or when you realized how big of a deal that coffee was in your life, that would be cool. We'd like to know that, and maybe we'll share a few
Yeah, I
of those.
want to
that we
hear
get.
everybody's.
Yeah, if you have any topics that you want us to really dive deep on,
Yeah, it's cool.
we totally do that.
Yep. All right. So until next time, Beans to Brews signing out. See you later.